Peace, what's going on? In this video, we're going to talk about cultivating willpower for the three key areas of life. We're going to talk about why willpower is such a significant tool, how it plays out in the fundamental pivotal concerns of our shared existence, and then, of course, how we can attenuate or delineate strategies that allow us to cultivate willpower in that specific regard with that in mind. It's going to open up the big picture, basically. All right, I'm your presenter today. My name is Brian Ogilvy. I'm the author of a pretty cool book. It's called How to Conquer Yourself, Discipline and Willpower for the Conscious Creative Thinker. My website is dotheknowledge.com and my email is Brian, B-R-Y-A-N, at dotheknowledge.com. My mom had style. She named me with a Y instead of the I. So, like that. All right, here's the book. It's on Amazon, of course. And then also, this is what the site looks like when you go and check it out. I'll talk more about the site, how you can get free chapters and what have you. Towards the end of this presentation. So I wrote a whole book on willpower, right? But it never occurred to me really that I didn't delineate specifically what willpower is really good for. Like most intellectual people, I just jump into the science. I just start explaining how. I start explaining the mechanics without explaining and motivating people into doing something that's essentially very difficult to do. So what are the implications? That's what we're going to talk about here. What are the short-term and long-term benefits? Like what are the differences between people who cultivate willpower? Why is it a significant part of your tool set, your character set? And then lastly, of course, how, as you begin to understand this, how you can implement willpower into the key concerns of life. So essentially, it's been found that there are three key areas of life. And these three key areas, once you have them down pat, you're naturally happy, like the sister here. Versus whenever you don't have them, you're more likely to be depressed naturally. All right. In fact, when you don't have these three keys, when people don't have them, they feel like something's missing from their lives. And at the far end of the spectrum, they can feel like something's wrong with them as a human being. They can feel like they have a fundamental defect in their character if they don't have these three keys locked down. So what are they? The first is money and career, which is everything pertaining to your financial well-being. All right. The second, too, is health and wellness. This is everything pertaining to your physical health, your physical well-being. And lastly is love, which is everything pertaining to your significant relationships. These are the key drives of human nature. And whenever we have a deficiency in one of these areas, we can feel like something is wrong with us. Again, this is when people start, Googling stuff up online late at night. You find them in the self-help section of the Barnes and Nobles alone. They get depressed. They seem withdrawn. They don't want to talk to anybody about it because they feel embarrassed, And lastly, at the far end of the spectrum, again, people can fall victim to other people just to get these needs met, like both in relationships and in commercial society, in the commercial sphere. People take advantage of other people on the basis of these three pillars. So let's go in depth about how to handle each one. All right, the first key, the money one, remember, it's not about being rich. It's not about being rich and famous. It's about knowing your path and staying on it, all right? You want to use willpower to give yourself this sense of psychological progression and psychological focus, because once you have that, it won't matter what your material assets are. It won't matter where you're at in terms of your own progress. And the second one, health. It's funny. It's the only one you're born with. So the tendency is to take it for granted until it's too late, which is unfortunate. Like, when you're young and you're healthy, you can tend to feel a bit invincible physically, and that's what causes us to get reckless. So you want to use willpower to set the systems up, set the patterns up, set the habits up early on in the game, rather than play catch up later on, which is much more difficult to do. And you find people talking about this in the healthcare debates that are happening now. It's the end of 2013. It's December 2013 as it is recording. And moving on, love. Love, it takes two people. So you think, well, willpower, how does that play in? And the other half of that is real love only comes around once or twice in life. Like, if you're honest, most people never find it. But the key here is that if you're lucky enough to come across it, you want to use willpower to point up so that the stresses of life don't intervene. You don't want to lose sight of what's important, and you don't want to lose sight, in this case, of who's important. And willpower is what helps you to keep that focus and keep that orientation so that all the other plates are spinning. Also, if you're single at the moment, willpower is a good key that helps you to elevate yourself so that every time you get back in it with someone, that relationship is different and that person is different, and you don't repeat the same psychological mantras of negative relationships in that kind of love component. So let's move on. What's also, oh, right. Remember, these are the 3 key areas of life. So once you have willpower, you're more likely to mature into someone capable of cultivating and sustaining these 3 keys over time. Also, it's a good formula. Like if someone, let's say, loses their spark or loses their edge, usually it comes back down to this kind of derivative mathematical formula. It's usually one of these 3 things that causes them to lose that sense of life. All right. Also, as a side note, these are also the 3 mega niches of self-help. So when people life coach, when people start to write personal development work, when people are in the industry that I'm in, they're advised and they're suggested to enter into one of these 3 keys, or one of the categories that are logically a subcategory of it, because this is where 90% of the money is made. This is where 90% of the money is made, because this is where the anxiety is. All right. Remember what I said about people looking stuff up online. When people feel anxious or worried, they're looking into investing, into real estate, currency trading, forex trading, etc. Or on another dynamic, new diets, weight loss, yoga, Pilates, going vegetarian, living with a terminal disease, coping with a terminal disease, etc. And then lastly, of course, dating advice, marriage counseling, sexuality, parenting. These 3 keys is what self-help is, or are what self-help is, rather. This is where the money is, because again, this is where the anxiety is. So as a counterpoint, you may be thinking, well, what about spirituality? What about mind power and whatnot? Aren't those the bigger fields? Aren't those the major concerns? And then don't these more material concerns derive down from that? And my response to you is that when people search for information on the higher planes, like, let's be honest, they're usually looking to obtain results on the lower planes. So for instance, that big phenomenon of The Secret a few years back, or the law of attraction stuff, it was about attaining the perfect mate or achieving financial success, hence the big red Ferrari in the beginning of the movie. Also, I offer an affiliate product on my site called Think Right Now International. Now, I'm not going to get in depth, but these are essentially psychological reformatting programs. They're thought and behavior modifications that like leverage the power of your subconscious mind. So it's all mind power. But the titles of the program are very basic things like Eating for Excellent Health Now, Anger Management Now. So this is health and relationships. Another one is I Am Smoke Free Now, which is health again. There's another one, Fearless Public Speaking Now, which is a career skill. And they have another one, Accelerated Sales Success Now, which is a money thing, of course. So again, just be honest with yourself. Like, what brings people back to church after decades of a more depraved and decadent lifestyle? Right. It's usually severe financial turmoil or terminal disease. And when do people get on their knees and start praying? It's usually when they think they're about to die. So what I'm saying here is these 3 mega fields are the basic drives that motivate all of our other searching. All right. It's not that anything else isn't important, but simply that it's human nature to use such higher fields as conduits towards our more primary concerns. Right? If it feels as if I'm trying to confine you or tarnish or revoke the significance of these more spiritual concerns, remember that what makes these keys powerful is that they're simply a framework for holding yourself accountable, for being responsible in creating tangible results. Like, I'm not trying to knock whatever you're into. I'm just trying to give you an overall framework. Anybody can decide to be spiritual tonight and return to being a complete a-hole by tomorrow morning and return to their same savagery the next day. All right. So these 3 keys require you to be empirical and unprejudiced in terms of your own progress, as well as the progress of those around you and the quality of the information that they're sharing. I forgot to put that in there. But really, if someone's hesitant to consider this idea, it's a good sign that they're probably also hesitant to be more disciplined and have more willpower in relation to their actual growth, or in relation to the actual utility of the ideas that they're sharing. So let's move on. Lesson overview. There are 3 key areas of life that determine whether or not we feel fulfilled, that determine whether or not we feel content, that determine whether or not we feel happy and confident in who we are and the circumference that we govern. And these 3 key areas are the most quantitative and objective areas of self-development. Like, it doesn't matter how good your rap is. If you have a big issue in one of these keys, everybody knows, and there's nothing you can do to hide it, no matter how lyrically gifted you are or what have you. So if you don't have the money or the career focus, you'll be stressed and you'll be confused and lost. All right? If you have the money and the family, but you don't have health, you won't be able to enjoy any of it. And lastly, if you have the money and the health, but you don't have any love, you'll be lonely. It'll all be meaningless. All right? So if you look around, again, very formulaically, like you'll see it. I'm not trying to put anybody in boxes. I just want to make the dynamic clear, make the big picture clear that this is what you need willpower for. All right? These are the three major concerns and three major issues with which willpower is the solution to. All right. And lastly, a scientific note. I'm a big nerd. I love science. This is a picture of Dr. Roy Baumeister, who's a social psychologist and a researcher at Florida State University. He wrote a book with New York Times writer John Turney called Willpower, Rediscovering the Greatest Human Strength. And he says, and now this is me quoting him, he says, those who cultivate willpower tend to succeed at work and at school at all levels of the game. They tend to enjoy good, healthy relationships that are solid, that are stable with less conflict. All right, they tend to be happier. They experience lower levels of stress. They're better adjusted. Like they have all these what they call mental and emotional health measures, these barometers and tests that psychiatrists and psychologists use, and they score better on that. They tend to be physically healthier. They're less likely to commit crimes. They're less likely to go to jail. They're less likely to be prejudiced. And at the far end of the spectrum, they actually live longer. All right, so it's that important. In my book, How to Conquer Yourself, I start the book off with a quote from Roy Baumeister. He says, the two greatest predictors of success are intelligence and self-control. All right. The two greatest predictors of success are intelligence and self-control. All right. So don't go following people into too much woo-woo stuff. Like, it's possible to be too abstract, and you always want to tie down what you're learning back to things that benefit you, that have some foundation in reality. All right. Again, there are three key areas of life: money and success, health and wellness, and then love. All right. When it comes to the money, remember, you don't have to be rich. It's about knowing your path, and it's about staying on it. There's a saying, it goes, there's nothing wrong with being broke, but there is something wrong with being broke and not doing anything about it. When it comes to the health, the second one, remember that you want to start off early in the game. You want to set the systems up when you already have it, because that's much easier to do. Don't take it for granted. And then when it comes to love, remember, it only comes around once in life. So even though you don't control it, you want to be prepared for it, and you want to get yourself prepared for it. You want to be as on point as you possibly can. All right. So contacts and resources. My email is brian@dothenowledge.com if you have any questions or concerns. Also, my office line is 718-577-1344 if you want to contact me for anything. Now, I have a resource page. I created a free exercise on this whole concept that'll walk you through it and help you develop some strategies for each particular one using willpower as the foundation. So if you want that, go to dothenowledge.com. You'll be able to download this video so you can study it if you're offline or what have you. And then you can also get this free guide, this free exercise. And on the website, I have free chapters from my book. So if the book was in a bookstore, you'd be able to pick it up, flip through it, and get a sense for how I write, get a sense for how I teach, get a sense for what my ideas are before you buy. So the digital correspondent to that is to offer you free chapters from the book that you can peruse at your leisure before you invest, all right? Because I want you to be sure that we work well together, and that if you like my teaching style, if you like the way that I think, it's for you. But I want you to be certain of that ahead of time. All right. So that's about it. Remember, there are three key areas of life that you need willpower for. And to get this video downloaded or to get the free exercise to go further in depth, go to dothenowledge.com. Thanks a lot and take care.